You're watching Next Pitch, the student athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Hi, Anthony Leveretz, host of the Next Pitch podcast. And on behalf of Jason Cardona, my award-winning producer, thank you so much for subscribing and listening to the show. One thing that we always mention at the end, and we're going to move it to the beginning now because some of you may not be getting all the way to the end. Please listen all the way to the end if you can. But is the best way to share this message of what we're doing is to recommend our podcast to somebody else. That's the way these things grow. That's the way they spread. And if you like what we're doing, please just recommend one of your friends listens to the show. We think we've got some really great content. And on that note, today's guest, Tony Azevedo. He is a 5-time Olympian, all around great dude. I love chatting with him. Almost lost his life at 4 years old, and then went on to become the best water polo player in the history of the United States, and is now passing that legacy on to generations behind him. Had an amazing conversation about all sorts of things. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Here's Tony. Tony, welcome to the show. I will have properly introduced you beforehand. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. And I think I want to start with your name. You know, my name's Anthony. Why the hell do you go by Tony and not Anthony, man? Why'd you throw such a good name away?
So I was born in Brazil. And in our family, every firstborn is named Anthony, right? So there's so many Anthonys that I like the name Tony to separate a little bit more. So that's where I got the Tony from.
So let's go way back here. So you moved to the U.S. I think you were 1 month old. Probably don't remember that move very well.
Yeah.
What precipitated that move from, I know your mom's Brazilian, but what precipitated that move?
So opposite. So my dad's Brazilian, my mom's American.
Oh, okay.
And when we went out there, it was for my dad to leave. He came out for water polo. He met his, my mom. They got married. They moved out for him to take over my grandfather's business, which was like a kind of a buy up of some company and then sell it, right? Kind of one of those. So my dad left the sporting world, got to Brazil, put on 60 to 70 pounds, got depressed and realized he hated life there doing that and wanted to become a coach again. So the moment I was born, they went back to the States. We lived in the trailer park while he did security guard, was a Spanish teacher, was a soccer coach, water polo coach, until he finally achieved his dreams of becoming an Olympic water polo coach.
That's amazing. So you also very young had a crazy accident, right? You severed your esophagus and your trachea. Is that correct? And I think I read you were basically dead on the table or not breathing for quite some time. How did that impact you as a young person to get back from that?
It didn't. I was so young. I was 4. Had a tracheotomy on the helicopter over to Memorial Hospital. I died. I was pronounced dead for a little over a minute. And then on the last kind of jolts of electricity, boom, I came back to life. I was on a machine for a couple months. They said I'd never, be able to play sports or have to always be on this machine. And a couple months later, I went from kind of in a coma-ish to out running and never looked back. I look at it more now like, I do believe that I'm here for a reason, and I was lucky enough to be, to live through that. I cherish every moment with my kids because I can't imagine what my parents would go through if that happened to me. But that's it. I also hear stories of like how the doctor I was moving so much, so the doctor couldn't keep this thing in my arm, the IV and everything. So basically my parents told me how important it was, and I just told my arm to shut down. And 3 months later, I actually lost the ability to use my left arm. So I had to slowly reteach myself how to use it because I was like so determined to get out of there. But those are just little things that I think about that helps me throughout life, but it was never like a motivation until later on when I realized, I think I am here for a reason. And now with everything I'm doing, from teaching young kids to mentoring all these kids, is like, well, maybe this is what I'm here for.
It's a pretty amazing story. So you obviously, we're going to get into your professional life, but you don't, 5-time Olympian, all-time great in your sport. But you don't start there, right? You start somewhere before you get to that point. How old were you when athletics, obviously from a very athletic family, but how old were you when athletics became important to you? Do you remember that moment when it kind of clicked? Like, I love this. This is something I want to do on a daily basis.
Well, I have two probably points, right? The first, just growing up in an active family, I was always outside playing, throwing balls. My mom was my grandfather played for the Pittsburgh Pirates before he was drafted. So baseball was like a big thing. I'd go outside, play with my mom, play basketball with my mom. My sister and I would play. So sports and being competitive was in my family. Like, we still can't play card games without someone. So I knew I loved sports from a very young age, right? Probably 8 years old. That's the first time I jumped in the water and said, "I can swim, Dad." And my dad's like, "Well, how do you know?" And he's like, "I've been watching," and I jumped in and never turned around, never looked back, right? So I knew, right? I'd say 8 is when I knew like sports was going to be part of my life. I just didn't know how serious I was going to take it until the 96 Olympic Games, when I was the ball boy. And I was there watching those games and seeing the Spanish win that gold medal and crying and hugging, and the thousands of fans rushing the pool made me think of sports as something bigger, better, and something that I think I could achieve. Because at that point, I'd given up, some of the other sports, but baseball and basketball were still two that I was playing. And it was then where I said, I can do this for water polo. What do I got to do? And 4 years later, I was an Olympian, right? And at that point, when I said that, I wasn't that good. I was just really smart and motivated.
That was going to be one of my next questions, is when did that Olympic dream for water polo happen for you? But let's go back to, you and I talked about this off air, and we talk about this all the time on this show, of the importance for young people of being involved in multiple sports. I know you have kids and they're in multiple sports right now. How critical do you think that cross training of the body, the brain, all the things that come from not doing the same function every single day? How important was that to your development, and why do you still think that's important today?
It's crucial. I mean, it's just absolutely absurd where we've gotten to, where we're not only specializing at a young age, but we're putting pressure on kids that are 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. But they don't need this kind of pressure in the same sport every single day, and being pushed to win a 12 and under tournament that no one cares about, and nor should you in years behind. I tell your kid, "Look at my 12 and under medal." Dad, that's pathetic, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You win something real. So that's the first, is like, and I remember, like, just baseball in itself helped me understand hand-eye coordination and throwing the ball, right? That's a simple one. But I look now in basketball, and all of the ability, the lanes, the transition game in our sport helped me tremendously. I look now, my son loves flag football. He plays basketball too. So does my daughter, plays basketball and football. And football, just like, how they have so many plays, and you have to read, she's quarterback, read, and he's receiver. And I'm telling him, like, this is water polo, how you get the ball. If you just run, no, you got to figure out ways that the quarterback's going to see you. The same in the sport that we love, to be successful. And all of these are learning lessons, and all of these are lessons that do put a little bit of natural pressure or tough situations on the kids, but in totally different environments, that it really builds a platform for them to succeed later on in life. And I just know that they're just having more fun. I can see it, right? Yeah. I totally see it compared to the kids who aren't. And then on the contrary, I'm such a believer that, okay, maybe some kids do have a dream at 12 years old. And I do see that 10 years old, that I have this academy here, and there's kids that'll come out and they go, "I know what I want to do." And it's not pressure from mom and dad. It's this. So those are the ones that I'll say, okay, but if we're going to invest into you as an Olympian at 12 years old, then we need to make sure that we're really doing this right. We know already through statistics and data that you are going to have a higher probability of getting injured. So we need to fix that by making sure supplementing with training and strengthening other muscles in your body and making sure you're fit. We know there's a possibility of a burnout. So let's talk about the mental aspect of the game. We know that sleep, water, and nutrition are the most important things when it comes to successful athletes, really. Yeah. And let's start that early, because I can't tell you how many times I see parents putting so much pressure, so much money into a kid who is highly motivated, but they don't deem sleep and the other things as important. And the kid fizzles out, whether it's mentally or most of the time with an injury.
Yeah, you just made two such good points. The one of making sure that if you are going to be training in one sport, that you do it correctly so that you don't start getting that physical breakdown at 12, 13, 14 years old and cause an injury. And the other thing we talk about here all the time, and you mentioned this, life is a series of failures. And if you only play one sport, you're going to get to where you're better at that. Playing multiple sports at a young age allows you to learn how to fail, get up from that, practice something again, and then maybe you're going to fail again, but you got to get up and go compete and do it again and continue that process. And it's what I love about athletics, being able to teach young people in a safe environment that process to go from wanting something, maybe not getting it, and how to get up and do it again.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's one of the things that I struggle with most with these young kids coming in, is either they're being pushed to be so excellent that they're so afraid to fail. Well, without failure, you're never going to be great. And it's a tough one, right? If I'm telling you to be perfect and you're not perfect, you think already you fail, yet no, that's just natural. You need to fail, right, in life.
Yeah.
And then the other one, gender-wise, on the women's side, a lot of times just the lack of confidence, because they're used to a coach berating them or someone getting on them. And then half of the times I just sit there and go, who cares if you miss the shot? Who cares if you have a bad game? Nobody cares except for you. You're making this way too big. You just go home. What could you have done better? What did you do well? Because you got to always think of that. A lot of times they forget that, because, again, they are highly motivated, highly intelligent, want to succeed. So those failures a lot of times hit them hard, but they have to learn how to deal with that to succeed. So those are the two areas that I see so often.
Yeah, such good point. So let's talk about becoming a high level athlete. You said the 96 Olympics was when you had that first thought process of I can do this. I want to do this. What does that take? So some parents out there, kids out there, coaches out there listening, what sort of process did you have to go through to actually get to the point where you were that kind of player, right? It doesn't just happen. What does that commitment level look like and feel like for someone that's training for that goal?
To me, the number one most important thing that happened to me with my life was when I made the decision. Again, I made the decision that I wanted to go to the next Olympics. My dad literally told me, son, you're short, you're fat, and you're slow. Now, if you know my dad, he's very lovable, so it wasn't as deep as it sounds. But it was just like, look, man, we have to sit down and make a long-term goal. And that changed my life, because what happens these days is everyone wants short-term results, right? So if I tell you I want to be an Olympian and I hired 5 people, 2 people, 3 people, I want my return on investment in 4 months, right? But that's not how it works. It is a long game. You have to change everything. So I sat down, and we didn't have money. So I sat down with a family friend. Luckily, my father was a coach, and about 3 people, my mother, and we all sat down and said, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do this correctly. So you need to get stronger. How are we going to do that? We're going to lift. Okay. And the way we lifted that day was never big, strong. We were going to lift 6 days a week for an hour in the morning, every muscle group, trying to be as fit as possible. Then we had to change the nutrition, because I was eating fast food a little bit at that point. So I took out all sodas, all sugars, all fast food. I still had sandwich and chips, totally fine, but just started drinking water more, started thinking about what I ate freshman year of high school. And then, like my dad said, I was slow, so swimming had to become a huge part of it. And that was the hardest part for me because I hated swimming. I still hate swimming. And and for that year, I wasn't playing better. I finished the season, but I was up every morning. I was getting stronger. I was getting fitter. I was feeling better. I was sleeping better. Then all of a sudden, fast forward to the next year, right? All of a sudden, I'm faster. I'm not fat anymore. I'm much more fit and I'm stronger. And so it was that sophomore year of high school where I did the same exact routine that I finished my final year at sophomore year. And now in 2 years, I went from, a smaller, out of shape, smart, always smart because I grew up around my dad in the pool, 14-year-old to the best player in high school. And then the national team, and that came from that, right? So it was planning aspect of it.
And a ton of family support. You have extended family. Your grandparents were a big part of your life growing up too, correct? And lost them during that process. Was that a motivation or inspiration for you as you were going through that time of losing your grandparents?
No, they, on my Brazilian side, there was a lot of success with them in the Olympic sports. My uncle with swimming at a high level in the Olympics, and my cousins in basketball, and then of course my grandfather with the Gracies. And then on my mom's side, I said baseball with my grandfather. But no, I mean, look, we were a supportive family. My mom predominantly was there with us every day. But it was her helping every single morning. It was our family friend, Ken Schroeder, who'd pick me up, take me to the gym, and we'd work out together. And then when there's any issues, any questions, then I have my dad there, right, answering them. And when we go on trips, there'd be a mental sports psych. I remember Ken Reviza, he worked with Angels a little bit. Yeah. I got to see him, and immediately I'd ask him a question, and those things really helped.
I think families don't understand as they're putting their kids into this, what kind of sacrifice of time it takes to be able to support a young athlete on that journey. Even just as a high school athlete, the time commitment now is crazy. And kids out there need to appreciate what their parents are doing for them in that sacrifice.
100%. And I mean, I was lucky enough where I grew up where there was no cell phones, right? So we didn't have those same issues as these kids do now. But I tell them now, I mean, if you guys really think long-term and you truly have these goals, dude, during the week, put that phone down, man. Put it down, because you get into a rabbit hole so easily nowadays. Put that phone down, focus on what you need to focus on, set your goals, every day achieve them, get sleep, and then you'll find on a weekend, man, you'll have plenty of time to do some stuff, right? Yeah. There's time like that, but I can't tell you how often I feel like there's just so much time lost on that little device that we all love now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I think it's every family's argument at the dinner table is about that damn piece of metal technology that gets stuck to our face. So you get to Stanford. And you what you guys do, for, I don't know, you said you still don't like swimming, but you guys tread water for fun. We all do it to save our lives. So our pain and suffering is what you do for fun. You get to Stanford and you are an immediate star, right? Like what was that? 18 years old, step on a campus like that, have the success that you have. What was that like as you were going through that process? And did you learn anything about yourself during that time, or as you look back on that as a young person, sort of about who you were, kind of how you presented yourself with all this success?
Well, look, that was such a formative part of my career because I'd basically gone 4 years. I actually graduated 3 years and a quarter in high school. So I didn't go my senior year because I finished early and, signed with Stanford. So I hadn't been in school in almost a year after the Olympics. The Olympics were in September. So I didn't get to Stanford until a month late, which is way later than everyone else. And everyone else just finished school and had been studying and doing finals, and I was playing in the Olympic Games. So I went in, and man, the humility bug just hit me right off the back, because yeah, I'm this, young best player, going in with this name in college, but I actually redshirted my first year in college, even though the coach was like, you have to come. I'm like, listen, I'm already missed half the season, and I need to get my education together, because again, I'm not thinking short term, maybe we can win quickly. I'm thinking, I got to make sure I can graduate, and I haven't been to school for a year. So I had a tutor. We really focused on the classes and making sure, and I wanted to graduate in international relations, which a lot of athletes couldn't do, because you had to have an 8 a.m. or a 9 a.m. Or Portuguese class, or, it was just a lot more. You had to go overseas, but I got that wave because I traveled so much. So there was a lot to that degree that that made it harder. But again, I set those goals, let me do it. And that first year, finished that, had a great world championships, and then came back and was ready to go. And we won, and then we lost in double overtime the last two.
So you won the 4-time the Catino Award, is that correct?
Yeah. So I won all 4 years.
It's crazy. So you get through this whole process. You're part of your college team, and you're also part of your national team, right? So those two things overlapping with each other. And I think a lot of kids go through this. They have their high school team and they have their club team pretty much in all the sports. How do you manage that? What kind of advice do you give to kids about how to manage that time, their loyalties to one or the other? And in your case, it was probably a little bit easier, but how do you do that with high school sports now, with club grabbing at you as well?
Well, look, because especially when I played overseas, I had club, then national team, then you have your local club, then I had high school here, plus club, plus national team, then went to Stanford. So you're constantly battling through those two.
Who's managing that calendar? What parent is managing? Is that would have to be crazy?
It was nuts. But for me, that part was really easy. And the reason it was easy is because I just loved the sport so much. And so when I would go to, let's say, my high school practice, I understood what role I was, right? So when I was my first year or two, I was just a sponge. I was still in the water being the pest. I don't care if you're older than me, bigger than me, I'm going to do whatever I can to win. But out of the water, I'm a sponge. I'm listening to the guys that I look up to. I'm learning. Then comes junior year. Now I'm a leader. Now I'm leading that team. So I came on that team now in a totally different role. Then when I go to my club team, I have a lot of other players that are very good. So now we're battling each other. What am I learning off of each other? Right. And then you go to the national team. Here goes me as a sponge again. But I will say, throughout that time, you get these, you do get thrown these missions, let's say, that, or these areas where you're starting to struggle. One of them for me was when I was succeeding in high school, I was scoring a lot of goals, and so no matter what club dynamic I would do and change, or high school, I still scored goals. So then you put me on the national team as a young kid and I'm not scoring goals. Guess what? I'm a failure, because all I'm thinking about is scoring. And I'll never forget the great Monty Niskowski, who's one of the greatest coaches in U.S. history, pulled me aside. And he's like, you're already failing if all you think about is goals, because goals you can't control. You can't control goalie had a great day, or they're double teaming you. So you're telling yourself in the first quarter you're terrible, because all you care about is goals. Look at all the other things that you do for the team. You win sprints, you earn exclusions, you have assists, you're a great defender. So all of a sudden, when I started thinking that way, that really opened my mind to just being consistent wherever and whenever I play.
That is such a translatable skill to all sports. Kids get so caught up in the ball going through the net, scoring a touchdown, hitting a home run, whatever that big thing is, right, that lights the scoreboard up, and forget about all of the other things that go into being a successful team. And when you're not scoring, being able to be really good at all of those other things is what makes you ultimately a great player.
Oh, absolutely. And every team you can't have a team of all all quarterbacks, all Steph Curry. You're not going to win.
Yeah.
You need every position, and then that ultimately makes you a better player, exactly like you said.
Yeah, and I used to tell my players all the time, I love tubas, but if we have 15 tubas in a band, we're going to be a pretty bad band. You need all types to make up a band, or it's going to sound pretty awful. And the same thing is relatable to sports. And for kids out there who may not be the best player on the team, don't score the goal, understanding that there are so many different roles as part of a team, part of a group that you can become really good at to make yourself valuable. I think it's a critical part of what sport can teach kids.
Yeah. And we had a guy at Stanford, and, and he came from Sacramento, and, he was definitely, you never thought he'd be one of the top players on these teams, but this guy was so dedicated. He was such a hard worker and just guarded me every single practice. And after 2 years, this guy became one of the premier defenders in the entire college. And guess what? He has 2 national championship rings because he would be the one guarding the best players every game,
Yeah.
And just through practice and gaining experience in that training against some of the better players, which I think is translatable when you're a club kid. Hey, you got a guy that's playing more than you, go shut him down every day and see what he's doing. And eventually you're going to get way better that way.
Yeah, I love it. So 5-time Olympian, number one, what's it feel like? I've been to the Olympics and watched, I had some players play in the 2012 Olympics in London and got to go watch them play, which was a remarkable experience as their coach. But as an Olympic athlete, what does it feel like to represent your country? Know that literally for that period of time, those 2 weeks, everybody in the world and in your own country is watching you and cheering for you and has hopes for you. What is it like to represent your country in the sport that you love so much?
Well, you don't really understand it until you go to opening ceremonies, to be honest, right? Because your job is you show up, you go to the pool, you train, you prepare, you play in front of thousands of people, way more, but you definitely don't want to think about the million people watching because that'll freak you out. So you're just focused on the task, right? But I remember going through opening ceremonies and just walking in with some of the NBA players, and just when I see these guys looking in awe, eyes wide open, I know how special this is. And then you're seeing the entire arena full, the whole spectacle that was basically for us. And I'm one of this small community of the world that gets to represent my country. That's when you start getting emotional. And that's when every time the national anthem is played, I still get goosebumps. And now I get even more excited, right? I think for that, it was different. But after my first opening ceremonies in 2000, every time now, the kids in the house know there's a national anthem played, stand up and put your hand over your heart.
So the 2008 Olympics, you guys won the silver, but you beat Serbia. I think it was the semis. Is that correct? In the semifinals that year, and they were the best in the biz at that time. Is that I hate to ask you this question, but I'm going to. But not winning a gold. How much does that sting you still, or does that win versus Serbia kind of rub some of that sting away from not winning the gold medal?
It stings. It'll always sting, But here's what I'll say is it doesn't sting as much as maybe it does for others, because our team, and myself included, knew that we really did everything possible. If there's a sacrifice that we made from losing our coach that year, from lack of pay, there was a lot of drama that quad as well. We really sacrificed everything to go from 11th in the world or 9th in the world to 2nd in the world, right? And beating a team that we'd never beaten, really. I mean, maybe in like a fun game, but like really we'd never beaten them in 8 years since they were a country. And for us to just annihilate them at 10-5 and then go play hungry and do really well against them, it's really amazing. And of course you have that silver on your neck. Everyone's smiling with a bronze and a gold, and you're crying with the silver. But looking back, look, it was a great team. And yeah, there's little things we could have changed, but that's life, that's sport. And I don't have regrets. And I think that's one of the big thing I tell kids out there today. Look, life is going to take you all over the place, but the only thing you don't want is regrets, whether that be in school. Oh man, I should have just taken time and done my homework or gotten better grades. I could have gone to a better college. Or coach said I wasn't in shape. Why didn't I just work out 30 minutes to an hour more a day or 3 days a week and be in better shape? Or why didn't I eat well and now I'm injured? These are all regrets that you'll have. Yeah. And I was lucky enough to never have that, but I was told at a young age, that's what you do not want to have. And I lived by that.
That's super cool. So raising kids today, I've got one I just dropped off at college and one that just entered high school. So time has wings. So number one, you got to enjoy all the moments that you have with your children. But as you're raising young athletes in today's kind of the youth sports environment, I hate to call it a system because I've been yelled at by people on this podcast for saying there's a youth sports system, because there isn't one that exists in our country. It's just all over the place and mismatched. But how do you think about, number one, you coach your kids in water polo and then you watch your kids play other sports. How do you, as a coach of your kids and then as a parent watching, how are you thinking about raising your kids through this crazy system that we have?
So, just like the things we mentioned at the beginning, since I know that, I'm pretty open and in control of everything that's going on, right? So I understand that if the football coach, so for example, soccer is a sport that my son liked, but they really wanted to specialize immediately, and it was an absolute no. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Like, not dropping all sports because he's good at 9 years old at soccer and have him fully invest, unless again he comes to me and he goes, Dad, I want to be a soccer. That's all I want to do. Yeah. Then I would have done it and then gone the other route, right? But he didn't, and so we dropped it. And now again, I believe, and I really believe that this 14 and under age group is so key. So what I did, I started my own club, 908 Water Polo in Long Beach, because and it's 14 under and that's it. And it starts with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. And the idea is, let's teach these guys. So fall, we're not playing in 15 tournaments or 5 tournaments like everyone else and just trying to get games to pay coaches, to pay clubs. I am training these kids. I'm seeing their strengths. I'm putting different scenarios. I'll go scrimmage with somebody so that, later on, when the season ends, water polo, we can slowly add games, but we're not burning out or learning bad habits. And the same is in the other sports. I'm lucky enough to have a lot of his football coach and his basketball coach. They're both friends that have a similar mentality, and they had maybe only football or only this. And now they're like, I'm going to start my kid in water polo. And the football coach's son is good at water polo. So, that's been me. I'm also one where we, as a family, I really try and I have to travel, a decent amount, and I'll take them with me. And if they miss a water polo thing and they miss that, it's fine. But I just want to make sure I have an open conversation with them saying, look, you're going to miss, you should train here if you have a tournament, or it's okay, guys, just be active. Don't sit on a couch. You're not going to be on your iPad. We're going to be active. So when you go back, it's fine. You're young enough to change, especially my 8-year-old daughter. She's not nowhere near that specialization. And then high school comes, and now it's more that specialization that is more okay, because they lived a life where they traveled, they had mom and dad, they weren't yelled at, screamed at, forced to do crazy things, that now they're ready to be pushed. And just like I was ready to be pushed. High school, I was pushed. I was crazy. And if they really want to be something, they'll have to be the same. But right now, I want to give them a childhood.
Yeah. Let's go back to your point that you made about your academy. And I think it's one of the things that's really missing on a macro scale in the United States. And I know in basketball, which is my background, many of Europe is academy based, not game based, right? And we play in the US, AAU sports for football, basketball, baseball, volleyball is all, and I don't know water polo, but I would assume the same game. And kids don't learn the skill development. Just drill down on how important skill development is and was for you, where you got to, of those building blocks at a young age, and for coaches listening, how critical it is for them to understand how to teach those skills and make sure that's part of their game plan with their club or with their teams.
Well, yeah, I think the easiest way to look at it is the more fundamental the player is, the higher the ceiling, right? And we look at it in a different view. I think, anyway, a lot of these people are looking at it differently, where the stronger I can make them, the faster I can make them, the better they'll be, which is true at a young level. It really is. If I take a 12-year-old and I train him more than another 12-year-old in swimming and lifting, of course he's going to be better, because they're 12. They haven't grown.
Yep.
But once we get to high school, if one athlete is fundamentally sound and all he needs to do is physical work, and the other athlete is physical but doesn't have the fundamentals that the other one does, that one will fail. And we see it over and over again. And you said it exactly. We're going to these tournaments because parents are thinking that they need more tournaments so they can say, my kid won this, or my kid is the all-star team, or my kid. That's all fine. But can your kid fundamentally pick up a ball correctly, egg beat, has the proper form to swim, understand the game in a way where he can teach his teammates? Can they learn how to be leaders? And those are the kind of things that, like, we really focus on here, because if I can take these sponges of kids from Texas, from Michigan, we just had one here today that came and lived with us at a freshman year in high school, and she just won a national championship in UCLA and a gold medal on the U20 team in water polo.
Wow.
I mean, just amazing, right? She had it in her, and she just needed this and some fundamentals, and now the experience is through the roof. But I definitely think that has to be ingrained in every coach's brain. Why is a tiny country like Croatia getting second in the world in soccer compared to the U.S., who has more athletes playing than anywhere else in the world, right? It's clearly fundamental. Why are all the MVPs in the NBA from outside, right? It's clear that there's this fundamental base, and from that, you're going to be able to be however good you can be. But we limit our athletes by not giving them this base.
Yeah, that was the best breakdown I've ever heard of that. And you started it with your fundamentals determine your ceiling, or something along that line. I've not heard it put that way before. That is amazing. I think, have you seen all those bumper stickers that say my kid's an honor student at such and such school? I'm going to make a bumper sticker is my kid has great fundamentals. That's I think that's we need to get that preached out there.
Yeah. We don't look at it enough like that. And not only in sport, but in life, right? That's what we're teaching as parents.
That's right.
We're teaching them fundamentals to understand how to clean your room, be a good person, shake hands, look in the eyes, eat well, drink water, right? Don't tease your sister too much. And then in the school as well, right? We want you to be well-rounded. Why in life do we preach one thing, and then when it comes to sport, we decide to throw away the one thing that we're all actually supposed to be teaching these kids, which is the fundamentals?
That's right. I love it. Okay. So you have a motto, be remembered. All the work that you're doing now, is that to have an impact on kids? Talk about everything that you're doing. And I can assure you, with all of that, you are going to be remembered. What is the work that you're doing across the globe for young people?
So the first thing we talked about is our academy, the 6-8 Academy. It's the only water polo academy in the United States and one of the only ones in the entire world, where We literally are here. We use virtual reality. We use video breakdown. We use our mental coach. We have a sports psych. We have a nutritionist. We have everything to give these kids those fundamentals to be the best that they can be. And we've super excited to have, again, 6 of the girls on that U20 team, gold medalists and future Olympians coming out. We've only been around for 4 years. As well as people going to Stanford and all these schools. So that's our base of our company. But the biggest thing that we're doing, going back to trying to change this whole mindset of sport, is quality over quantity. And we're trying to introduce technology into not only water polo, but a lot of the other Olympic sports. So basketball, football, you guys have always been way ahead when it comes to analytics and data, but these sports are just left behind, and parents are even more confused. So what we're trying to do is help athletes and parents understand with our own water polo combine, kind of where they stand and what they need to do to improve. And then we've also created our own plus minus, not one based on you in there when they win, but one based on just physically, what did you do well and not well in there, so that you have tangible, objective decisions to improve on. And that's the reason we did that. And we're growing. We're in South Africa, New Zealand, Canada, Australia, and those are the main things we're trying to do. Is one is, change the sport. You let water polo use analytics, and if we can show the world how important analytics are, then we can start to help the field hockeys, the other Olympic sports that need this exposure, right? And need the quality, and even soccer need that quality so that they can start to succeed at the higher level.
Well, I can assure you, if my son was a water polo player, I'd be sending him your direction. He is unfortunately immersed in football, basketball, and track, so that's not going in the pool too much these days. But I love the thought process about the entire, we're going to teach, but then also taking the entire game and the experience that kids are having, right? Because that's really what analytics does. Technology does, is it improves that teaching experience for coaches and for kids to be able to see themselves doing what it is they're doing incorrectly, but also then to show them how to do it correctly.
Well, I mean, you nailed it on the head. And of course, you've been around it in the basketball world. You see the benefits of it, but you cannot believe in a sport like water polo how most of these guys don't want analytics, because it'll expose, they think in their minds it's going to expose their weaknesses, right? And they want to hold on to their little power, and it's just, stop it. We all need to move in a direction of objective analytics that we can use to help each other and help parents and help kids, which is ultimately going to help all of us. And then we talk about exposure, and then there's more money around the world of water polo to do more things. But if we're sitting in this unanalytical world, which we are right now in our sport, we're not going to go anywhere. And that's always been my goal.
Yeah, it gives me opportunity to jump on a soapbox here just for a second too, and talk about technology and film and how important it is, and used correctly can be an amazing tool for teaching young people. But on the other hand, if used incorrectly, you have the power to break a kid through delivering their performance to them incorrectly, especially in front of other kids. And learning, if this is for coaches out there, if you're delivering film, remember it's a classroom, and you would never try to embarrass a kid in a classroom in front of 30 students. You don't want to do that. You want to think of it the same way. That film room's your classroom. That analytics is your classroom, and figuring out how to make sure that they're learning from it, not getting broken from it, should be your thought process when using those tools. I've seen it too many times. Kids just get destroyed, and then they get fear from going into that film room. And I know what's going to happen. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to go back.
Yeah, I was a part of that in one of my years playing, where you would go in and this coach would just berate you in front of everyone, and then immediately it puts you in the wrong mindset. Instead of going into that video saying, "What can I learn?" You're going in going, "I hope he doesn't look at me," and then it's like away from everything. Yeah. No, you're 100% right. Look, there's a way to be constructive feedback to everyone and even say something to a certain guy, as long as you're being equal and not too harsh. And the time to be harsh is the one-on-one. If there is something that is happening over and over, then that's, a one-on-one conversation with that athlete, because I believe I just finished coaching my 12 and under team, and I chose A and B teams, and I sat down with the 3 kids that I went from A to B. And you know what? These 12 and unders, they were really impressive. 2 of them said, I'd rather play more on the B team. And one of them said, I'd rather be on the A team. Even though I might not play as much, I want to play against the best so I can be better. These 3 gave better answers than a high school kid or a college kid. So I think sometimes we don't give them enough credit as well. Like, hey, you don't say something in front of everyone. Go talk one-on-one. These guys, they can be little men,
Yeah. I think little film 101, especially because we got a lot of youth sports coaches that listen to this. And if you're starting, we got fall football and volleyball starting here, and you're starting with film sessions with young people, and that's their first experience, make sure you show them something good first. Show them a highlight, show them something that they did well. And it creates a safer place. And now you have a fertile ground to come in and say, okay, remember, we did this really well, but on this play, you can see your technique. And it is such a better way to approach a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 that is starting to have that first experience with watching themselves, because it's scary for a young kid. And remembering to praise, then teach and correct, praise, teach and correct is a critical component for young kids.
Love it. That's exactly, we're big advocates here. And I love my dad. He coaches with me. Maggie Steffens, who's the 3-time gold medalist, 4-time Olympian, comes every once in a while. But you may see us on deck getting into a kid, but you'll see there's usually never a problem, because we're constantly giving them positive feedback as well. Yeah. They need that because they are doing some great things in there.
Yeah.
You can't dwell on the one thing, but I'm also not gonna tell you when you need to fix them.
Yeah, that's right. All right, man. Well, I can't tell you how much fun this has been. I appreciate you coming on. So we do this on every show. The last 2 things here. Number 1, you obviously had an amazing career, crazy journey through life. What, if you could go back to your 10, 11, 12-year-old self, tap yourself on that shoulder and give yourself some advice, knowing everything that you know now, what would that advice be that you would give your younger self? I was really shy. So it took me a while I was very humble, and it took me a while to understand the difference between, I believe a great athlete has a really nice balance of confidence and humility. You can't have too much humility. You'll never lead. You can't have too much confidence. You become egotistical, especially if you want to be that all-around athlete. And I think that if I would have told myself to stop looking up to some of these Europeans who everyone, at that time were the best, and go in right away, always with that little more confidence, I would have had a couple easier years before I figured it out myself. Yeah.
But, definitely, you have to be confident, but you have to also learn how to listen. And if you can do those 2, you'll be fine.
That's amazing. All right. My favorite part of the show is dad joke time. So do you have a dad joke for me?
So I do. I was thinking, I can't remember. I think it was, why don't eggs tell jokes?
Okay. Why don't eggs tell jokes? I don't know.
Because they'll crack each other up.
Just like it cracked me up. I love them, man. The dad joke never gets old. So I should get these guys as a sponsor for the show. But if you're ever in need, my family has bought me the penultimate dad joke book here. So if you ever need some help with that, just let me know. Well, Tony, thank you so much. It's great to meet you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with us today. That was amazing.
Thank you, guys.
Anthony Leverett's back here. Just finished up my conversation with Tony Azevedo. And first of all, we figured out why he goes by Tony and not Anthony. So I can I can forgive him for that. But really cool conversation. Really cool dude, guy I would love to have a beer with someday. But covered a bunch of topics. But one of the things that he said, and I've thought about this a lot and talk about this subject a lot, but I think he said it better than anybody I've ever heard say it. And I'm probably not going to get it exactly right, but the mastery of fundamentals at a young age is what creates your ceiling. And I want to say that again. Mastering fundamentals at a young age creates the ceiling that you can get to. And I thought it was such an amazing point. In today's youth sports world, we all want to go play games, travel. And while that is fun and there is some importance to playing some games, what's critical at a young age is learning how to do the sport, not playing a game in the sport, how to do all the things that later on you're going to need to do to be able to be really good. And I'll talk about basketball. If you don't learn how to shoot appropriately at a young age, and you just go get thrown into games, and you're shooting that ball from the hip, or you're thumbing it, or shooting it with two hands, instead of having proper technique, proper base, proper footwork, learning how to shoot from ball coming to you from different directions, and having a great platform, you're never going to be a great shooter, which is going to keep you from reaching that ceiling. And mastering that fundamental young will give you an opportunity, if you have the athleticism and the work ethic and the drive and the help to get there, will give you the opportunity to get there. So I thought it was an amazing point. And then lastly, not the only thing other thing we covered, but he talked a lot about confidence versus humility. And for him, he was too humble and had to gain some confidence. But to be an elite athlete, you have to be confident in who you are and what you're doing. And that confidence comes from having fundamentals, being great at your sport, and learning how to be good on a daily basis. But then also tempering that with some humility. You do not want to be that dude or that gal that walks into the gym that everybody's like, oh my God, that person's an egomaniac. I don't want to be around them. You want to be that person that everybody knows is good, but they want to be around you because you're humble enough that you're not unbearable. So finding that balance as a young person, and for parents and coaches helping young people, helping them find that balance is really important. Again, if you like what we're doing, please share this podcast with your friends and get the word out there. If you want to reach out, you want to hear a guest, you want to hear a topic discussed, let us know. Always happy to hear from you. And until next time, make it a great day.